Welcome to Audio Mentors, your channel where we explore the most revolutionary and transformative ideas in history. In this episode, we will journey into the fascinating philosophical world of Friedrich Nietzsche through his masterpiece Beyond Good and Evil. This book challenges all established norms, questions our deepest beliefs, and invites us to see morality from a radically different perspective. Published in 1886, this work seeks to destroy the illusions of traditional thought systems and opens the door to a vision where the freedom of spirit and the will to power become the ultimate guides to living an authentic life. Nietzsche does not fear challenging conventional philosophy, religion, and morality, revealing how these ideas have been used to control and limit human nature. Are you ready to dive into a book that puts everything you think you know about good, evil, truth, and power into question? Join us on this journey as we unravel Nietzsche's provocative ideas and learn how to apply them to our daily lives to achieve greater freedom and authenticity. Chapter 1. Beyond Philosophical Dogmatism. Truth is not absolute. It is perspectivist and conditioned by the one who seeks it. Nietzsche begins his work by attacking philosophical dogmatism, which he sees as an obstacle to the true search for knowledge. According to him, dogmatic philosophers have imposed a universal and unchanging truth, forgetting that truth is deeply influenced by individual and cultural perspectives. For example, Nietzsche criticizes Plato for introducing the idea of the good in itself, a notion that, according to him, has limited our ability to think freely. Instead, he proposes that knowledge should be dynamic, flexible, and adapted to circumstances. Practical example. In your daily life, ask yourself, how many of my beliefs have been inherited without questioning? Make a list of 3 ideas you consider absolute truths and reflect on how they might change from a different perspective. Key reflection. For Nietzsche, the freedom of thought begins when we stop searching for universal truths and accept that our understanding of the world is always partial and limited. Chapter 2. The Will to Power as a Driving Force. Life is not a static process. It is a constant expression of the will to power. In this chapter, Nietzsche introduces one of his most influential concepts, the will to power. This principle holds that all beings seek to express themselves, expand, and overcome their limits. For Nietzsche, this will is more fundamental than the instinct for survival and is at the core of all human activity. Practical example. Identify an area of your life where you feel stagnant. How could you exercise your will to power to overcome obstacles and grow in that area? It could be by learning a new skill, confronting a fear, or making a bold decision. Key reflection. The will to power is not about dominating others, but about overcoming our own limitations and reaching our fullest potential. Chapter 3. Critique of Traditional Morality. Conventional morality is a tool of control, not a universal truth. Nietzsche challenges Judeo-Christian morality and other traditional ethical norms, arguing that they have been designed to repress human instincts and maintain social order. According to him, we must go beyond these impositions and create our own rules based on our uniqueness and context. Practical example. Reflect on a moral rule you have followed your whole life. Where does it come from? Is it really relevant to you, or do you just follow it out of habit? Consider how you could redefine that rule based on your own values. Key reflection. True morality is not something imposed from the outside, but something that emerges from our nature and personal experience. Chapter 4. The Critique of the Herd Man. Most people prefer conformity over authenticity. Nietzsche describes the herd man as someone who blindly follows social norms and avoids questioning them for fear of rejection. This type of person sacrifices their individuality to fit in, losing the opportunity to develop their true potential. Practical example. Think about an area of your life where you feel you are acting as part of the herd. What is holding you back from taking a different path? Design a plan to start making decisions more aligned with your own desires and values. Key reflection. The first step toward personal freedom is daring to think and act independently, regardless of what others may think. Chapter 5. The Free Spirit. The free spirit is one who has broken the chains of tradition and authority. Nietzsche celebrates the free spirit, a person who dares to question everything, even their own beliefs. This type of individual is not afraid to face uncertainty and uses their critical ability to create an authentic path in life. Practical example. Take time to question one of your deeply held beliefs. Research opposing perspectives and reflect on how they might enrich your understanding. This exercise not only strengthens your mind but also prepares you to embrace the complexity of the world. Key reflection. Becoming a free spirit doesn't mean rejecting everything. It means carefully choosing the ideas and values that guide your life. Chapter 6. Beyond Good and Evil. There are no universal values. Everything depends on context and perspective. In the chapter that titles the book, Nietzsche asserts that we must abandon the absolute notions of good and evil. These concepts, he argues, are cultural constructs that limit our perception of the world. Instead of adhering to these categories, we must develop a perspectivist eye that allows us to see reality from multiple angles. Practical example. Imagine a situation where something you consider bad could have positive effects in another context. For instance, a failure could be an opportunity to learn. Reflect on how this new perspective changes the way you judge the situation. Key reflection. True wisdom lies not in classifying everything as good or bad, but in understanding that every action and decision has multiple facets. Chapter 7. The Will to Power and Its Influence on Society. Each society builds its morality to serve its predominant power structure. In this chapter, Nietzsche delves into how the will to power not only defines the individual but also shapes social and political structures. According to Nietzsche, the morality that governs our societies is not a universal truth, but a construct used by dominant groups to maintain control. Practical example. Observe how current social and ethical norms are designed to favor certain groups. For example, the idea of working long hours as a sign of success benefits large corporations while limiting the time individuals have to develop their personal interests. Reflect on how these structures could change if we adopted a morality based on personal growth and creativity. Key reflection. Morality must evolve alongside society. The challenge is to identify when a norm no longer serves the common good and becomes a tool of control. Chapter 8. The Critique of Objectivity. There is no single truth. Every truth is conditioned by the perspective of the one who holds it. Nietzsche rejects the notion of absolute objectivity in philosophy, science, or morality. For him, each truth is influenced by the interests and perspectives of those who hold it. This perspectivism does not imply that everything is relative, but that truth must be understood as a set of multiple perspectives. Practical example. Imagine a political debate where two people defend opposing viewpoints. Instead of seeking who has the absolute truth, consider how their experiences, education, and values influence their positions. This approach not only promotes empathy but also opens the door to more inclusive solutions. Key reflection. Accepting perspectivism does not mean abandoning the search for truth, but recognizing that it is always a collective and unfinished process. Chapter 9. Beyond Nihilism. Nihilism is not an end but a transition to a new affirmation of life. Nietzsche identifies nihilism as the inevitable consequence of abandoning traditional certainties, such as religion and absolute morality. However, he does not view it as something negative, but as an opportunity to re-evaluate values and construct new meanings. Practical example. If you've ever felt that the loss of a belief or goal leaves you empty, use that moment as an opportunity to reflect on what truly matters in your life. Nietzsche suggests that by letting go of the old, we make space for the new. Key reflection. Nihilism is a bridge to a more authentic life, not an abyss to fall into. Chapter 10. The Creation of New Values. The Übermensch is the one who creates his own values. Nietzsche introduces the concept of the Übermensch, Superman, as an ideal of one who transcends the limitations of traditional morality and creates a unique and personal system of values. This process requires courage, introspection, and the ability to challenge established norms. Practical example. Make a list of the values that currently guide your decisions. Ask yourself which ones you have automatically adopted from society and which ones you have defined for yourself. Work on replacing the values that no longer serve you with those that reflect your true essence. Key reflection. creating new values does not mean rejecting everything old, but consciously choosing what enriches our lives. Chapter 11. The Importance of Art and Aesthetics. Art does not merely reflect reality, it transforms it. For Nietzsche, art is one of the most powerful ways to express the will to power. Through art, individuals and cultures can reinterpret their world and find new forms of meaning. Art, he says, connects us with our deepest essence and inspires us to transcend. Practical example. Take time to experiment with some form of artistic expression, such as writing, music, or painting. Don't aim for perfection. Focus on how the creative process connects you to yourself and your vision of the world. Key reflection. Art is not a luxury, but a necessity for those who seek to live fully. Chapter 12. Applying beyond good and evil in everyday life. Nietzsche's philosophy is not just for reading, it is for living. In this chapter, we explore how to apply Nietzsche's ideas in our day-to-day lives. From questioning our beliefs to redefining our values, each lesson from Beyond Good and Evil invites us to be more conscious and authentic. Practical example. Whenever you face a moral dilemma, stop and ask yourself, am I acting according to my own values or according to the expectations of others? Use this practice to align your actions with your true self. Key reflection. Nietzsche's philosophy does not seek easy answers, but profound questions that guide us toward a richer, more meaningful life. Chapter 13. Critique of Religion as a Herd Morality. Christianity has domesticated man, limiting his potential to achieve greatness. Nietzsche devotes much of his work to criticizing the impact of Christianity on Western culture. In Beyond Good and Evil, he analyzes how monotheistic religions, especially Christianity, have promoted a herd morality that stifles creativity, individuality, and strength of character. He argues that religion turns people into docile beings, blindly following imposed rules without questioning their validity or relevance. Nietzsche describes this morality as a tool of control, designed to maintain social order for the benefit of a few. However, this system limits the ability of individuals to exercise their will to power and overcome their limitations. Practical example. Reflect on how certain religious beliefs or norms have influenced your personal decisions. Have you followed rules simply because they were imposed by an external authority? Consider how you might redefine your morality from a more autonomous and conscious perspective. Key reflection. True moral strength is not found in blindly following rules, but in questioning them and creating your own system of values. Chapter 14. The Concept of the Übermensch as the Human Ideal. The Übermensch is the creator of his own values. The Übermensch is one of Nietzsche's most emblematic concepts. In this chapter, he develops the idea of a human being who transcends the limitations of conventional morality to establish his own values and live according to his will to power. The Übermensch does not seek approval nor fear rejection. His life is guided by his personal vision of the world. Nietzsche sees the Übermensch as the opposite of the herd man. This human ideal does not seek security or conformity, but growth, authenticity, and the fullest expression of their potential. Practical example. Identify an area of your life where you feel you are following external expectations. How could you make decisions more aligned with your own values and goals? This exercise can help you begin to build a more authentic and meaningful life. Key reflection. The path to the Übermensch is not easy, but it is profoundly liberating. It involves abandoning the securities of the herd to explore the unknown. Chapter 15. The Will to Power Applied to Creativity. Creativity is an expression of the will to power. Nietzsche considers creativity one of the purest forms of expressing the will to power. Artists, writers, inventors, and visionaries embody this force by transforming the world around them through their works. Creativity is not only a tool for expression but also a way to transcend the limitations imposed by society. Practical example. Dedicate time to a creative project that you are passionate about. It could be writing, painting, designing, or even solving a problem innovatively at work. Observe how this process connects you to a deeper sense of purpose and self-awareness. Key reflection. Being creative is not a luxury, but a necessity for those who seek to live fully and express their true essence. Chapter 16. The Morality of the Weak and its Impact on Society. The morality of the weak elevates mediocrity as a virtue. Nietzsche analyzes how traditional morality has been shaped by the weak to justify their position in society. According to him, this morality promotes values like humility, obedience, and sacrifice, which benefit those who lack the strength to compete in a world governed by the will to power. This morality of the weak opposes greatness because it sees it as a threat to the established balance. Nietzsche argues that we need to overcome this mentality and adopt a morality that celebrates strength, creativity, and individuality. Practical example. Think about situations where you have settled for less than what you could achieve. How could you challenge these limitations and strive for something greater? Key reflection. Abandoning the morality of the weak does not mean becoming insensitive, but rather recognizing the value of excellence and personal growth. Chapter 17. Beyond good and evil in human relationships. Authentic relationships are based on honesty and mutual acceptance of imperfection. Nietzsche also applies his ideas to human relationships, arguing that many of our interactions are conditioned by moral norms that prevent us from being authentic. Instead of seeking to please others or meet social expectations, he proposes relationships based on mutual respect and honesty. Practical example. Identify a relationship in your life where you feel you cannot fully be yourself. What steps could you take to be more authentic in that interaction? Sometimes, this may involve setting boundaries or having difficult conversations. Key reflection. Authentic relationships are not those free from conflict, but those in which both parties can express themselves fully. Chapter 18. The Pursuit of Personal Greatness. Life is a constant process of self-overcoming. In this final chapter, Nietzsche invites the reader to embrace a life of continuous growth and self-improvement. For him, the purpose of life is not to attain perfection, but to constantly strive to improve and overcome our own limitations. Practical example. Set a challenging but achievable goal in an area of your life, such as professional, physical, or emotional development. Work daily toward that goal, remembering that progress, not perfection, is what matters. Key reflection. Greatness is not a destination, but a continuous journey toward the best version of oneself. Chapter 19. Critique of Traditional Philosophy. Western philosophy has perpetuated dogmatic prejudices by disguising them as absolute truths. In this chapter, Nietzsche deconstructs traditional structures of philosophy, arguing that they are nothing more than ideological constructs reflecting the interests of those who promote them. He claims that concepts like truth, being, and morality have been manipulated to restrict freedom of thought and perpetuate the power of certain groups. Nietzsche uses the metaphor of the hammer to illustrate his approach. The philosophical hammer does not destroy for the sake of destruction, but strikes to reveal the fragility of the foundations upon which these ideas are built. Practical example. Reflect on how philosophical or ideological beliefs influence your worldview. Do you believe in any absolute truth that you have never questioned? Try reading about opposing perspectives and discover how this broadens your understanding of reality. Key reflection. True philosophy does not seek to impose answers, but to liberate the mind to explore new possibilities. Chapter 20. The Power of Words and Language. Language is not a faithful reflection of reality, it is a tool of power and control. Nietzsche explores how language, far from being a neutral means of describing reality, has historically been used to manipulate and limit our perception. Words not only convey meanings but also establish hierarchies and power structures. For example, terms like good and bad are loaded with cultural and contextual connotations that shape our way of thinking. Nietzsche calls for the deconstruction of these concepts to understand reality from a more free and authentic perspective. Practical example. Think about words or concepts you use regularly, like success, failure, or justice. Analyze how these words can have different meanings depending on the cultural or personal context. Try redefining them in a way that reflects your own experiences and values. Key reflection. Language shapes our understanding of the world. By questioning and redefining the words we use, we can free ourselves from inherited meanings and develop a more authentic understanding of reality. Language is a powerful tool that we must use consciously, rather than allowing it to control us. Chapter 21. The Role of Individual Freedom. Freedom is not a granted state, but a constant struggle against the forces that seek to domesticate the human being. In this chapter, Nietzsche approaches freedom from both a philosophical and practical perspective. He argues that true freedom is not simply found in the absence of external restrictions, but in the ability to challenge and overcome internal limitations. For Nietzsche, most people are not truly free because they are trapped in social, moral, and cultural norms that dictate their thoughts and actions. Practical example. Reflect on the important decisions you've made in your life. How many of them were driven by your personal desire, and how many were influenced by what others expected of you? Try to identify an area where you feel you're not being authentic, and take a small step to exercise your freedom. Key reflection. Freedom is a continuous process that requires courage to question and redefine the norms that limit us. Chapter 22. Overcoming Resentment. Resentment is the poison that paralyzes the soul and distances man from his highest potential. Nietzsche views resentment as a destructive emotion that arises when a person feels powerless in the face of circumstances. This emotion, he argues, is the root of many moral systems that seek to equalize people not by elevating the strong but by weakening the powerful. Practical example. If you feel resentment towards someone or something, take a moment to write about it. Examine whether this feeling is helping or hindering you. Ask yourself how you can transform that negative energy into motivation to improve your situation. Key reflection. Resentment enslaves us. Freeing ourselves from it is essential for achieving personal greatness and inner peace. Chapter 23. The Importance of Individuality and Withdrawal. True freedom is only found when we withdraw from the noise of the world to listen to our own voice. In this chapter, Thoreau reflects on how withdrawal from society can help us discover our true individuality. For him, isolation does not mean rejection, but a return to what is essential, to what truly matters. According to Thoreau, this withdrawal can be achieved both physically and mentally. Practical example. Think about setting aside at least one day a month to disconnect from social media, work, and everyday responsibilities. Dedicate that day to walking in nature, reading, or simply reflecting on your goals and values. This habit can help you maintain a deeper connection with yourself. Key reflection. Individuality is not found in what we show others, but in how we know and value ourselves in solitude. Chapter 24. Critique of Materialism. Luxury and the accumulation of goods are not only unnecessary but also take us further away from true happiness. Thoreau criticizes society's obsession with consumption and the accumulation of wealth. He argues that, instead of enriching our lives, materialism traps us in an endless cycle of desire and frustration. According to him, true wealth lies in simplicity and the ability to enjoy the little things. Practical example. Make a list of your belongings and reflect on which ones are truly essential. Try donating or selling items you don't use regularly. This exercise not only lightens your physical burden but may also have a positive impact on your mental well-being. Key reflection. Living with less doesn't mean sacrificing quality of life, it means focusing on what really matters. Chapter 25. Breaking with Traditional Morality. Morality is not an end in itself, but a means for the individual to transcend their condition. In this final chapter, Nietzsche synthesizes his critique of the moral traditions that have dominated the West for centuries. These norms, he argues, are nothing more than constructs imposed by elites and religion to maintain control over the masses. He believes that living under these rules limits human potential, transforming us into herd men's who prioritize conformity over authenticity. Nietzsche proposes that each person should abandon traditional morality to create their own values, based on their experiences and aspirations. This break with the established order is not an act of rebellion, but a path toward a fuller and more authentic life. Practical example. Think about a moral norm you've followed all your life without questioning it. For example, the idea that you must always seek approval from others. Reflect on how this belief has influenced your decisions and actions. What would happen if you started acting according to what you truly value, regardless of external opinions? How to apply it in daily life. Identify beliefs that don't resonate with you and replace them with values that reflect your true essence. Learn to say no to situations or commitments that aren't aligned with your principles. Experiment with small acts of authenticity, such as expressing your opinion honestly or choosing activities you genuinely enjoy. Chapter 26. The Will to Power as the Driving Force of Life. Living is not simply existing, it is struggling, growing, and transcending. Nietzsche emphasizes that the will to power is the essential force that drives all life. For him, life has no inherent purpose, but the will to power gives us direction by constantly seeking self-improvement and mastery over our circumstances. This will does not imply dominating others, but overcoming our own limitations. Practical example. Think about a challenge you've been avoiding, such as learning a new skill or changing a negative habit. Identify a small action you can take today to start facing it. This initial step is an expression of your will to power. How to apply it in daily life. Set goals that challenge you and push you out of your comfort zone. Celebrate each small achievement as a step toward your highest potential. Reflect on your fears and use the will to power to confront and transcend them. Chapter 27. Perspectivism and Acceptance of Diversity. There is no single truth. Reality is as varied as human perspectives. Nietzsche introduces perspectivism as a way of understanding the complexity of the world. According to him, each person interprets reality through their own perspective, which is influenced by their history, culture, and personal experiences. Recognizing this diversity helps us better understand both others and ourselves. Practical example. The next time you have a disagreement with someone, instead of insisting that your point of view is the correct one, try to understand their perspective. Ask them why they see things that way and listen without judgment. This will not only enrich your understanding but also strengthen your relationships. How to apply it in daily life. Practice active empathy by listening carefully to people with different opinions. Broaden your horizons by reading about cultures, philosophies, or histories different from your own. Reflect on how your own experiences shape your worldview. Chapter 28. Overcoming Nihilism. When everything seems empty, the opportunity to create new meaning begins. Nietzsche acknowledges that abandoning absolute truths can lead to nihilism, the feeling that life has no purpose. However, rather than seeing it as an end, he views it as a starting point. By overcoming nihilism, we can create our own meaning and live a more authentic life. Practical example. If you've ever felt lost or without purpose, take time to reflect on what truly motivates and brings you joy. Make a list of activities or projects that spark your enthusiasm and start integrating more of them into your daily life. How to apply it in daily life. Set aside time each week to explore new interests or hobbies. Find small ways to contribute to something larger than yourself, such as volunteering or community projects. Recognize that you don't need all the answers. The simple act of searching is a purpose in itself. Chapter 29. Creation of New Values and the Affirmation of Life. Life is a work of art, and each of us is the artist. Nietzsche's final message is that we must affirm life as it is, with all its imperfections, and use our creativity to shape our existence. Creating new values doesn't mean rejecting everything we know, but rather building something more meaningful from our experiences and aspirations. Practical example. Design a personal manifesto that summarizes your values, goals, and how you wish to live your life. This document can serve as a guide in times of doubt or uncertainty. How to apply it in daily life. Set aside time each morning to remember your values and how you want to apply them in your daily actions. Surround yourself with people who inspire and challenge you to grow. Celebrate the beauty and imperfection of life, always seeking opportunities to learn and create. Reflective closure. In Beyond Good and Evil, Nietzsche not only challenges our deepest beliefs but also invites us to live with authenticity, creativity, and courage. This book is not just a critique of traditional morality, but a guide for those who They seek to transcend the limitations imposed by society and build a truly meaningful life. Beyond Good and Evil is one of Friedrich Nietzsche's most iconic works, a book that profoundly challenges the moral, philosophical, and cultural structures that have defined Western society for centuries. Published in 1886, this work is not simply a critique of conventional thought but a call to action for individuals to overcome the limitations of established norms and discover their true potential. Throughout the book, Nietzsche explores topics ranging from the nature of truth, morality, and religion, to the creation of new values and the affirmation of life. His provocative and philosophically complex style invites the reader to question everything they think they know about human existence. Central themes of Beyond Good and Evil. Critique of traditional morality. Nietzsche argues that morality, especially Judeo-Christian morality, is a tool of control designed to suppress human instincts and maintain social order. According to him, this morality teaches people to relinquish their power and creativity in the name of an externally imposed virtue. Practical example. Reflect on a moral rule or norm you followed without questioning it. Is it something you truly value, or is it just something you've been taught to accept? Consider how you might redesign your principles based on what truly matters to you. The will to power. For Nietzsche, the will to power is the primal force that drives human beings. More than a desire to dominate others, it is a need to overcome our limitations, grow, and create. This concept is presented as the foundation of a full and authentic life. Practical example. Choose an aspect of your life where you feel you're not reaching your potential. Spend time and effort improving in that area, whether by acquiring new skills or confronting a challenge you've been avoiding. Perspectivism. Nietzsche asserts that there is no universal truth. All truth is conditioned by the perspective of the observer. This idea does not mean that everything is relative, but that we must recognize and value the diversity of viewpoints. Practical example. When you have a disagreement with someone, try to understand their perspective rather than insisting that your truth is absolute. This approach not only fosters understanding but also broadens your view of the world. The Übermensch, Overman/Superman. The concept of the Übermensch represents Nietzsche's ideal human, a person who transcends conventional morality and creates their own values. The Übermensch does not seek the approval of others nor fears rejection, but lives with authenticity and passion. Practical example. Think about an area of your life where you're following others' expectations. What decisions would you make if you weren't afraid of judgment or failure? Affirmation of life. Nietzsche rejects the idea that life should be judged by an external standard of good or evil. Instead, he invites us to accept life as it is, with its light and dark, and use it as an opportunity to create and experience. Practical example. Each morning, make a list of 3 things you're grateful for and 3 actions you will take to make the most of the day. This habit can help you see life from a more positive and active perspective. Practical lessons from Beyond Good and Evil. Question everything. Nietzsche's philosophy begins with questioning the norms, beliefs, and values we take for granted. Ask questions like, why do I believe this? Where does this idea come from? Is it useful to me today? Create your own values. Instead of passively accepting the rules around you, define what truly matters to you. This may include writing a personal manifesto to guide your decisions. Embrace uncertainty. Life offers no guarantees, but that doesn't mean we can't enjoy the process. Learn to accept uncertainty as part of the journey and use it to grow. Overcome resentment. Resentment is a poison that limits our growth. Identify situations or people toward whom you feel resentment and look for ways to transform those feelings into motivation to improve your life. Live with authenticity. Be true to yourself, even if that means going against social expectations. True freedom and happiness come from living according to your own values. Final closing. Beyond Good and Evil is much more than a philosophy book. It is a challenge to conformity, an invitation to introspection, and a guide to living with greater authenticity and purpose. Nietzsche not only critiques the world as it is, but also inspires us to imagine and build a freer and more meaningful world. Call to action. If these ideas have resonated with you and you believe they could benefit others, We invite you to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any of our future analyses. Also, share this video with your friends and loved ones so that together we can continue exploring ideas that transform lives. Thank you for joining us on this fascinating journey through Nietzsche's pages. We'll see you in the next video from Audio Mentors, where we will continue exploring works that inspire us to be better. See you soon.